Hey, what do you say, boys and girls? This is Bobby Blitz from Overkill. That's right, you are on Sonic Perspectives. You're in the right place. Don't you go anywhere.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview of Sonic Perspectives. I'm Rodrigo, and my guest today is the owner of one of the most distinctive voices in metal, the one and only Bobby Blitz from Overkill. Bobby, thank you for joining us.
Rodrigo, fantastic, and thanks for that great introduction. I don't know if I can live up to it, but...
You certainly do. Yeah. Well, let's talk about Overkill's 20th album, Scorched. You guys remained incredibly consistent through the years. What keeps you going after so many years in the business?
Well, I think, part of it is taking the opportunity and making the most of it. 20 records doesn't just happen. It happens because, we're always trying to make it a little bit better. We're always trying to push the parameters, or the walls or the ties that bind us, to go out into other areas, to show other influence. And I think that we actually have done that on the new record. It contains progressive thrash. It contains thrash. It's rock and roll. It's blues. It's traditional heavy metal. It's groove. So if we're trying to push those boundaries, I think we've succeeded with this one. And that's how 20 records are done.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I struggle to find another thrash metal band that has so many albums throughout their career.
I don't think, I think one of the reasons is we just never took the break. We never took the 90s break, the late 90s, early 2000s break, where a lot of people, a lot of guys went home and started working for their parents. Yeah. Nobody appreciated them anymore. But I think I could attribute that to the fact that we kind of saw it coming. We've always paid attention with regard to not just the music, but to the business of it, that it was going to be ours. It should be ours fully. So we had great managers who would answer any questions we had. So when the 90s came around and it was time to retool, like say mid-90s, late 90s, we had to find a way. But we were prepared to find that way. So we got rid of management, took it over ourselves. And whenever I remember back to that era, it's one of my most proud because, it's one thing to do it when it's easy. When it's like it's coming your way, it's like, oh, wow, how great am I? How great is this? But when it's fucking hard, that's where you measure yourself. You say, hey, we could still make this happen under these circumstances. So the 90s are that's one of my crowning achievements with regard to Overkill and with regard to Verni.
Maintaining the band during that period, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Was there that was challenging for so many bands, not just thrash, like metal in general was struggling, and it was a time for transformation in the industry as well. Was there ever a moment when you guys started doing a Black Album or a Load Reload type of album, or?
No, I don't think we ever did. The closest we ever came to it was pre that, and that was in 1993 with I Hear Black. That had, just had a groovier, thicker kind of an approach to it, but it wasn't based on outside influence. It was based more so on inside influence. And what ended up happening was Bobby Gustafson left in 90 after years of decay. Dee and I took over the songwriting fully in Horoscope. And I Hear Black was the second record we were going to write together. But we had incorporated two younger guitar players in the band at that time, Rob Cannavino and Merrick Gant. And these guys wanted to write, but they came almost a little bit from the generation before us, or, on that edge. And I think that generation was being influenced more by that sound. So when we incorporated them in the songwriting, we got something that was thicker, groovier. I remember a buddy of mine from Brave Words said to me, we were doing the interview, he goes, I hear Black Sabbath.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So back to the new album. What is the inspiration for the title, Scorched?
Well, I always think that people look at, a title as, God, we're trying to say something. We're just looking for something that describes what's in the record, sounds cool, has something to do directly with the record. So there's not a whole bunch of deep thought that goes into this.
Right.
I think one of the things Overkill does is we write for sure from the heart. We try to push the parameters of that, like I spoke earlier, to go into like the different influences. But this, I finished, when I finished my end of this song, during the pandemic, I thought of it as a success because it was almost the turning point from what was inspiring the record was the pandemic. And now it started going in the other direction. And I said, oh my God, I finally got something fucking positive out of this dark head over this last year and a half,
Yeah.
So I think the guys picked up on that. And when we had given Travis Smith, who'd done the art, a little bit of guidance, he ran with it he just ran through it like a sprinter,
Right.
to do the background that you have right there behind you.
Yeah.
And so I think it just kind of worked out. And it wasn't this great, a whole bunch of guys sitting around with all this, this great thinking and, I think it should be this because of this. It was just like, oh, that sounds cool.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, you mentioned the artwork, and this is awesome, by the way, with two sides of the same being at war with each other. So it was more like an interaction between you and the artist, or did he came up with it on his own, or?
We sent him the Orobus, the snake that eats itself.
Yeah.
I think Greek mythology. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. And he had our demon eating his own tail and eating the spine and all sorts of. But then he stood the two, having that kind of conflicted conversation. Or are they saying, "Let's get the fuck out of here. The world's burning"? Are they saying, "Lockdown, no way. Lockdown, no way"?
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So I think there's probably, with Travis's input, Travis Smith, he actually put something together for us that was more reflective of the era or time we were going through. So this was the oddball of all the ones he did, but the one we liked the most.
Got it. And one thing that's almost a constant in the Overkill album covers is this dark shade of green. Is that on purpose or just a coincidence?
No, it's by design. It's when I spoke earlier about the 90s, I think that goes all the way back into the 80s when we were paying attention. So when we wanted to be a band, we needed a mascot. We needed to make our T-shirts. We needed to be out there. So the first T-shirts were white and black. We saw plenty of those when we went to the clubs to see bands. The second T-shirts were red and black. So plenty of those. Right. Nobody's got the fucking green. So we wanted to stand by ourselves. It was just, I suppose, we weren't like marketing experts at the time, but even as kids, we knew if they see the green, they'll think it's us.
Yeah. Wise decision, if you ask me. Yeah. And well, this is the second album with Jason Bittner on drums. I love the previous one, Wings of War, but he seems to have fit in like a glove in the band, right?
It's a good take on it. I mean, you can't, Jason Bittner's not the kind of guy you can tell what to do, and not like any of the drummers necessarily were. But Jason is he is a bona fide good songwriter, and I think that when you start doing demos, and we do, the demo starts with Didi Verni, it ends with me, but it goes through all the other guys in between that. So there might be finger drums that are suggesting something in some of the songs, but you can't tell Jason. And I think, and I don't mean that shitty. I mean that thank God that he can think outside the box that we think in because of his talents and his songwriting abilities. So when you get to songs like Twist of the Wick, where he's almost gone into this progressive thrash fucking blast beat, and then to the song that follows it, Wicked Place, where he's doing this fucking blues ride.
Yeah.
It's like, you're like, the guy's all over the fucking map. He can do it all good. So I agree with you. He's a great fit. It's almost as if, when he was getting baptized as a young Catholic, they were saying, and one day you will play an Overkill.
Got it. Yeah. Well, and I think you mentioned Wicked Place. To me, if you strip down all the distortion, that is pure blues with a sprinkle of Black Sabbath. Am I right in that description, or? Wasn't
it funny? I mean, if you were doing on Sonic Perspectives, you were interviewing Ozzy in '74, he'd tell you that he was in a blues band from Birmingham.
Yeah.
That was, but then every heavy metal, dude, recognized them and the riff as being what changed our music. You know, we hold them as iconic, though they considered themselves a blues band. But I tend to agree with you. I mean, obviously, I mean, you look at my hair, I come from a different era. You know, I come from growing up in the 70s. I was singing to songs like that big fat fucking riff in the shower when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Whether it be Foghat or whether it be, whether it be Sabbath from back in that era. You know, so to me, it's like, it was like a departure. It was, you take a modern production or, the bombastic production that Colin Richardson added to this, a scoop guitar of the old days, an old riff. It's almost like listening to two eras simultaneously, the present day and something in the past.
Yeah. And I think to that point, the previous album was, more direct and more straight metal. This one is more varied. I don't know. That's my first impression anyway, after like 5 or 6 listens. It lasts longer. I think it has potential to last longer than the previous one. I don't know if you feel the same way.
For sure, it goes more places. I mean, I tend to agree with you. It's a different journey than the last record. The last record had a lot of thrash template that we use in it. It's not always the same, but there's always kind of a, we say when we released The Surgeon as a single. Yeah. Dee said, this is the right one, man, because it's Overkill 101. It's not exactly what we did on the last one, but it's all it says is that the pandemic may have changed shit around you, but we didn't change. But it's an updated version of that. You push the parameters out. And I kind of tend to agree with regard to Wings of War that it contained more so of that template. But you can't really find that thrash template all over Scorched. You find traditional heavy metal. You can hear us going back to when we were a cover band doing, Maiden-esque type records or Priest or the shit that. And I'm not saying we went and took it. I mean, it's just, but it comes from that different era. Going home, won't be coming back. Fucking metal choruses. Twist of the Wind, progressive thrash, but a metal chorus. I mean, it was a really fun record and a fun journey, especially with the luxury of time during the pandemic to be able to create, because it just went so many places and I just didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. But it got to a point where I was like, I don't fucking care. What's gonna happen? Whatever happens, happens.
Exactly. I think all of us pretty much thought about that at some point, right? So many months of lockdown, but yeah. and then, well, you get a song like Fever, for example, where it's very unique. I swear to you, when I heard the first lines of that song, I thought Jeff Tate was doing a guest appearance. Very unique vocal approach on that song, right?
Yeah, that's great, because I've said it in other interviews, I really aspire to be a better singer. I always want to be a better singer. I'm trying to be a better singer. My mother was a great singer. You know what I mean? I was not afraid to sing, so I should be a better singer. And that was such a unique, you have to look at the music first in that song. And that mellow section that starts Fever, that is the setup for the heavy section, are both unique to us, because we've done heavy, but we've never done that kind of heavy. That is bombastic, chord-driven heavy. Yeah. That riff is a chord-based, slower riff. And maybe it's reminiscent of the old Skull Crusher days or Horoscope days. But to put the two together was, the task was to make it a seamless joining of the two. And I was ruining that song. I mean, I was just like, I ruined it at least maybe 10 times. I ruined it. I would sit there and try to be Mr. Scary and fucking who the fuck knows. I'm doing whispering. Right. And I'm out here in my kitchen cooking something, and I'm start singing Over the Mountain, by Ozzy, Blizzard. And said, that's it. That's the fucking key to that song. This fucking guy opens his mouth. You know who he is. He does it. It always does it great. It's always a great presentation, whether it's mellow or whether it's heavy. And I went back in. I think I went into my studio, and I think I was done in 40 minutes. Wow. because it was just understanding that I'd complicated it so much based on what I thought it was, when it really just needed me to open my mouth and just do a presentation for that mellow part.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing for singers how much confidence plays a role in the performance, right? For a guitar player, you can just wing it sometimes, maybe bass player or a drummer, but for a singer, if you're not confident in what you're doing, it just destroys everything, right?
I got to tell you, I mean, I'm sure you've seen us live over the years, and there was about a 3 or 4 year period of touring where we'd finish the first couple of songs, right? And I would go, good evening, New York, good evening, Los Angeles, good evening, Berlin.
Yeah.
One rule, I'm in charge. Any problems?
Yeah.
But I think to some degree you're right. Now, obviously, that's with humor also. But I think the point is that it makes a huge difference. I mean, you can't tiptoe into a heavy metal song. You can't ease yourself into a heavy metal song. Maybe a jazz song you can, but you can't ease yourself into a metal song. So I think that you need to be able to open that door and say, here I am, and I'm going to do it the best I can. Love me or hate me.
Yeah. And when you started your career, there was no one singing in that style except for maybe Brian Johnson or Udo. I mean, what kind of template or influence did you use to develop your style?
Well, I really didn't develop it. That's just opening my mouth. I mean, it's developed itself over the years. I mean, I smoked for 30 years of the fucking being an Overkill. I was smoking Marlboros. I mean, I would do it on stage sometimes,
Right.
It's helped me in my later part here. I mean, obviously I have my pacifier, Yeah. But I think that what's helped me is I stopped smoking, and tried to be that better singer. And it's funny because, you listen to a record like Scorched, and my birthday's in May. I'm going to be 64. It doesn't make sense. I'm still singing in standard tuning. That they're not making the songs go down lower so that I can reach them. My voice is actually getting better over the last couple of years. And I'm like, what a fucking gift. What a gift. I mean, it's a twilight of the career. I get that. But the point is that to be able to still perform at a high level after that voice kind of developed itself over all those years, that I could still push it out there and still do different things, whether it be fever or hit higher notes. For me, it's just a blessing because I don't think I would do it if it was, if I was on that sharp decline. I just wouldn't want to because I would have reached my height, and that would have been enough for me.
Yeah. Well, and my impression is that you're in that sweet spot in your career where you're respected in the business and you can live off your music, but you can still do your shopping without people bothering you for pictures or autographs. Am I right in saying that? Or
yeah. Well, I got a T-shirt that says, "Yes, you're right. I am Bobby Blitz."
Good one.
So, I've always I did this interview with a guy once, right? He was from Eastern Europe, and I mean, and they're very nice people, and they're great metal fans and the whole thing. But the guy was kissing my ass for the first 10 minutes of the interview.
Right?
You're a legend. You're a this. You're a that. Oh, I can't believe I'm talking to you. This and that. I said, let me tell you something, pal. I said, I mow my own lawn on fucking Sundays. I also change my own oil.
Yeah.
So stop the ass kissing. Let's get down to the interview. I do think that one of the things that has fed maybe my personality is, and I think I'm just one of the regular dudes. That's what I think. I think me and you could sit in the hood of a car, have a beer, and talk about the new Metallica record. That's the way I think of myself. Is because it has never been over the top. I can shop. I can do whatever the hell I want. Right. Nobody fucking cares, which is okay with me. They care when we're on stage.
Right. That's awesome.
And
yeah. And 2025 will be the 40th anniversary of the band's debut, Field of Fire. Are you planning anything special for the occasion, or?
No, I don't think so. I think we did. It was 2017 or 2000. We did a live record just in Germany a few years back. I don't think we're going to do anything for it. Okay. If we still have records on our contract, and I don't know. I kind of think of revisiting the past as being when, there's nothing else left to do, and obviously if you're releasing a record like Scorched after a fucking pandemic in 2023, at this particular point in our lives or career, there's still fucking unfinished work,
Yeah.
I have a great, it's, I don't know exactly how the quote went, but it was Dee Dee, and he was doing an interview with Eddie Trunk, and Eddie's just been a friend of ours forever, I mean, these guys go to New York Giants games together, that's the kind of guys. He used to work at our record label. And he asked Dee Dee, he said, would you, is it better to be in Twisted Sister and Explode for 2 records? Where you have that, where you're solidified in rock and roll history after those 2 records. Or is it better to be an Overkill for fucking 30 years and, just take that slow path? And he said, oh, it's Overkill. He goes, why? He goes, I got so many riffs up here.
Yeah.
It's a great answer if you think about it, right? So it means that there's work that is unfinished at this point.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and you mentioned Dee Dee. I can't not talk about the bass tone on this album, and I think he has set the template of what bass should sound on a thrash metal album since early on, right?
I think so. I think, he always had that, he came from that punk era where the bass was loud. He came from, the Motorhead school of everything louder than everything else.
Yeah.
When we were a cover band doing Dead Boys and Motorhead and Judas Priest and other stuff, the bass was a forefront instrument as well as the guitar. We were a 1 guitar band for a while, and then the bass was right there. They were right next to each other. And I think it was always smart because as he developed it, he became identifiable as the guy who created that type of a mix or that type of a tonality. And, it's gone. It's waned here and there over the years. Depending on who we've used to mix the record. But I think Colin Richardson, who did Scorched, is very aware of Dee Dee's position when it comes to tonality and sound and where he sits in the mix. And baby, that fucking bass is back. The beginning of the Surgeon, it's like getting kicked right in the nuts by 4 hard strings. You know what I mean? So I've always, when people say Overkill's easy to identify because of Bobby's voice, I always say, and Dee Dee's bass.
Absolutely. Yeah. He definitely set the template. That's my view anyway. That's my take, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah. And you were part of BPMD, a project with Mike Portnoy, Phil Demo, and Mark Mengi. I know you guys intended to tour in 2020, but obviously COVID happened. Is there an intention to do a second album and maybe finally doing a tour, or?
Oh, sure. We're always talking. That's just a good fun project. That's the the beauty of that is, most everybody knows the tunes before you're going in. Maybe you have to work on something, but it's kind of like this, it's kind of like a shell game between, I pick these 2, I pick these 2. So we're always talking about it. And I see something in the future for sure. It's going to be on talking in a few phases where there's actually been recordings.
Right. Okay.
Something will happen. Will a tour happen? I don't 100% know. That's up to everyone else's schedules. I know Mike's been really busy with the Winery Dogs. They've just been out on the road. And Phil's doing a bunch of different things. Mark Mengi just got another gig, that I'm not allowed to say at this particular point. So we're all busy beavers, but beyond that, it's just a fun fucking, let's get some pizzas and see what happens kind of a vibe.
Got it. Okay. Well, back to Overkill. You're starting the tour in Europe this time, and I think the popularity of the band there is comparable, if not bigger, than in the US. Do you agree? How do you explain that? Maybe you toured there more often. I don't know, but that seems to be the case, right?
That Europe is more popular?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that, the thing in Europe is that the cities are closer, especially in Western Europe. They're just closer cities. Our populations in our big cities are huge compared to the big cities over in Europe. Now, Paris obviously is big. London is huge. But if you go to, we're playing, the first place we're playing is, western, a part of Western Germany, over closer to the Dutch border. It'll be our first show. The place is going to sell out, right? It's going to be 1,200 people at this place. It's a smaller place, but if we were in New York or New Jersey doing that show, it would be double that amount of people.
Okay.
So when we went through, we did a rescheduled show after the pandemic at a place called the Wellmont Theater in New Jersey. It was exactly double. It was 2,400 people. So it's always hard to figure out because of population and because of all the empty space that America has in the center. From the Mississippi River all the way over to the Rocky Mountains is really a sparsely populated area. Yeah. So you got to get out to the West Coast, and you get out to the West Coast, we're putting 1,800 people in the fucking building. That's pretty good for this long.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And when can we expect the North American tour dates to be announced? I'm in Toronto, by the way, and I hope you guys make it to these shores eventually.
Yeah, we're banging around right now. I mean, it's always it's logistics. I'm not going to sit here and complain like every other fucking musician. It's unaffordable, you know. You can figure the fucking thing out, but it's always the fucking tax issue when it comes to Canada.
I know. I know.
It's like we will do it. We will go out there. We will take the chance. We will roll the fucking dice. And, you know, let's see what happens. Let's give it all we fucking have. This could really fucking succeed. Then somebody hits you for 30%. Just to say hello to you.
Tough to make it work. Yeah, I agree.
That's an honest assessment of the situation. And that's what's hurt it a few times. I love going to Toronto. I mean, we had great shows at the Opera House. You know, I like going to Montreal. I like doing the festivals. I like doing heavy MTL. I played Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, all the great fucking hockey towns, man.
Yeah.
Vancouver, you know, I mean, it's done all the cities. I'd love to go back there. It's just a matter of the logistics. If we can make it happen, yes, I want to go.
I'll keep my fingers crossed. Before I let you go, there's 2 questions from fans. One of them is, if you could put together a bill with any band, existing or not, who would you pick, like 2 or 3 bands? And if you were forced to pick your favorite Overkill album, which one would it be?
Okay, so that question, I've already accomplished that in my life.
Okay.
So, you know, it's like a bucket list thing that I've had since I was a kid. And it was 1988, and it was Slayer, Motorhead, Overkill.
Wow.
And yes, which is like a, you know, it's like a tripod, you know, coming in to stab you, you know.
Yeah.
And that was amazing to me. And who would I like to tour with beyond that? Probably Judas Priest. That's what I would like to open for. Mm-hmm. My favorite Overkill record is always really hard for me to pick because I think of it in eras. So in the first era, I think it's probably the Years of Decay. In the second era, Horoscope, From the Underground and Below, 1997, and then Ironbound, 2010. So I have to pick it more like in chapters than I can. This is my favorite Overkill record. Because I think we've done so many different things with so many different people that it all needs to be represented one way or another.
Yeah. Solid choices. Mine would be taken over, but you know, you're in charge. Yeah.
Our son is back in the set, baby.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys make it to these shores. But thank you so much for the interview, man, and all the best with the new album, Scorched.
Thank you, Rodrigo. It was a pleasure. Thank you, man.
Cheers. Take care.
Bye, bro.
Bye.